Thank you. Almost quite curious myself. So, well, there are obviously lots of variations of the term SS7, and this is not actually what I'm gonna talk about. So, I'm gonna talk about another SS7. It's used for signaling mainly, and there's have been lots of problems with SS7. And the fun thing is, why are all the discussions taking form at this point? And that's some of the things I'm going to mention, but also what SS7 is, to give you an idea. Usually in terms of telecom expressions, if you're used to acronyms, there's a lot of them in various shapes and forms. So trying to give you the overall picture, but also to give something to compare by in order to make the message clear in terms of the problems and what's going on. Does that sound okay? So a little bit about me. I'm Janne Haldesten, and I work for Cybercom as a security specialist. Nothing gets me going as an incident, so I do a lot of incident handling. But also I'm an offensive security evangelist. Love the concept, and everything should be red teamed, more or less. I have some engagements at the Swedish National Defense University, is one of them, and also I'm a fellow in the Cybersecurity Forum Initiative, and also an occasional lecturer at George Washington University as well as Halmstad University. So that's a little bit about me. So I'm going to talk about the SS7 and give a primer, and as I said before, what things are happening now, but also attack vectors and what one could do if we have vulnerable SS7 systems. But also user implications and who the parties that are exploiting SS7 and what's currently being done since the shit had hit the fan back in 2014. And a couple of years have passed, and what has been done since. But also some advice for self-defense in order to avoid being intercepted by SS7, for instance. The SS7 is a signaling system 7, and it's basically used for call routing, setup, and tear down of communications, but also for billing and roaming. So that's the main purpose of SS7. But also it's the 7 is the 7th iteration of the signal methodology. So it was designed to be out of band since the previous versions were running on the same. But also it's less susceptible for fraud than in comparison with previous, but also more cost efficient. So it simplifies and enables cost efficient solutions to carriers. That's one main driver, or used to be at least. Things have obviously moved on since with new types of technologies. But also it probably the PSTN, the public networks, as well as the GSM. But since everything needs to have backwards compatibility, we're stuck in a situation where we actually need to handle legacy technology as well. So it doesn't just affect regular users, it has implications of various other types of implementations too, like SCADA systems within oil and gas, but also some effect on cars, for instance. So in terms of dates, to give you a small background on how it all started, back in 1979, I wasn't that old by that point in time, and 2000, CTRAN was added to implement packet switching. Per default, as SS7 was created before, relied on circuit switching, and things have moved on since. I managed to find this one. It was a master thesis that was produced in 2001. It's a study of location-based services, including design and implementation of enhanced friend-finder clients with mapping capabilities. That's a quite interesting creative use of SS7 that obviously has other purposes these days. And 2008, Tobias Engel demonstrated tracking at the CCC. And when things really picked up the pace was 2014, with Snowden revealed NSA's use of SS7 and the Aurora Gold. NSA is one of many actors, but basically all countries and all intelligence services have considered heavily the use of SS7 at some point and are using it. And same year, Carsten Knoll, German security researcher at SR Labs, demonstrated what could be done with SS7, and he did a documentary with the CBS, 60 Minutes, when they showed a congressman, Ted Lieu, of things that could be done to him. They also did a similar thing to an Australian politician. I will get into that later on. And then suddenly the genie was out of the bottle. So basically what SS7 does, apart from roaming and building out things, it has a set of advanced services that can be used like caller ID, SMSing, local number portability, toll-free number portability, alternative destination busy, for instance, remote call forwarding, enhanced toll-free service, and inbound call restrictions, and lots of things. Like this picture that you see in front of you is something called USSD. Speaking of strange acronyms, in this case the acronym is quite valid, since the original term is, if I'm not mistaken, unstructured, something. So it gives operators as well as subscribers various types of options. Also, when we move abroad, we get our numbers rewritten to easily facilitate calling out from that specific country, with getting the prefix and all things in order. That's also being handled using USSD. Yep, there we are. SS7 as network is global by coverage, and what that really means in terms of how it affects you, we will be discussing later on. So this pretty much ensures that we can move in between various operators and still being able to call, SMS, and send data back and forth. So in general, to make things very simplified, we have between these mobile switching centers, we have voice, but everything else is handled on a different layer by these single points. So everything is settled from the home, the Vista location register with the home location register, in order to see what kind of subscription do we have, and getting all the necessary details over for the other network operators, so we can use their networks when we roam. Describing what things looks like, I tried to make the very best out of it by actually outline somewhat what a typical network, for example, just for you to get the upper picture. So we have like these cell towers, and we have the base station controllers and radio network controllers. That actually goes into the Vista location register. Everything is interconnected with SS7. So there are so many ways actually that our connections go through. So, and before the SS7 network was quite secluded, and by that it was also designed that nobody who has had access to SS7 would ever use it. So, but then again, things have changed, and we have lots of new telcos, and some are more secure or caring than others. But still, they can get to us at some point. And all these peripherals and parts are using global titles, meaning that it's something that resembles like a phone number that could be roughly translated to be an IP address. So the reason why I mention this is when I will start explaining more thoroughly how this all comes into play. So picture that communication is made possible not by one, but in fact several hundreds of links, which pretty much results in a chain. So when we phone somebody, some things happens along the way, finally making the other person's phone ring. And the chain isn't stronger than its weakest link. And there are various ways that one can get access to SS7. Some are easier than others. I will recommend you to memorize the stack, because there will be a hearing afterwards, see how much you remembered. As I say, there are lots of acronyms and various components that does various stuff, but I've been trying to actually get you to get some kind of reference, like it's a modern protocol, so it follows, can translate into the OSI model, where the various layers have various functions. And in general, we have call control, we have database-driven application support, but also a transport system. By design, SS7 was circuit switched, and to facilitate IP communication, something called SIGTRAN was put on top to facilitate this. If you have today we have LTE, and we had like this Betamax VHS kind of game going on between LTE and WiMAX. And in Africa, some countries chose to actually roll along with WiMAX. And since WiMAX doesn't have these issues with backwards compatibility, yeah, they are not in the problem of actually having these SS7 vulnerabilities either, which is interesting as such. And the SIGTRAN stack, yeah, it basically builds on top of on SS7, but it has these other parts, makes IP communication possible. So we have this adaptation layer, the use part. We have a routing layer. Sorry, what the hell? It's obviously my day. I shouldn't have poked Murphy earlier on. Yep. We have a session layer and an application layer. So it pretty much resembles of things communication goes these days. And that's also something that we need to build into SS7 as well. So the point code downwards could be translated roughly into the equivalent of a MAC address in terms of linking. But also we have global titles that can be translated into IP addresses, as I said before. And then we have these subsystem numbers, SSNs, that are to be compared with ports for various purposes. And in the map application part, we have IMSI numbers, the SIM card number. We also have the device serial number, the email, and also the subscriber number as well, the MSI SDN. Getting a grip of all the acronyms yet? So basically there's some routing criteria in terms of S7. It's either the point code, the global title, or the subsystem number, or combo of these. So what happened after we started to realize that, okay, SS7 won't cut it anymore. We started to look at diameter. So it's an evolution of radius. So length, radius times 2. It's more secure, and the principles for actually building diameter was to learn from earlier mistakes, to build things after best effort. But obviously there has been a certain number of reported vulnerabilities in diameter as well. And during Black Hat in Amsterdam 2015, a bunch of researchers actually built a fake base station exploiting vulnerabilities and configuration mistakes in LT. It supports AAA services, authorization, authentication and accounting in various services. So the idea is actually for it to replace SS7, but the thing is, yeah, a lot of the tele infrastructure in the world is still based on SS7. That means that during that time, when we get things replaced, we will still be in the need of communicating with SS7 as well. Increased performance, and that's quite important since Oracle has deemed that today approximately 12 million messages are sent per second. And by next year, that number will have risen to 99 million. So that's also one of the major drivers as well. It also enables communication among IP network elements. And it supports roaming between LT and 2G and 3G via SS7 map their interworking functions. And that's also something that's interesting since normalization and interoperability between differing implementations is also a thing that diameter accounts for in some ways. But that's always the pros and the cons. So it requires new equipment, even though replacing the infrastructure, and it isn't appliance required to that very extent anymore, since lots of the logic is in software. So things could be virtualized too. The interworking functions extends the attack surface. So even though we have the ability to actually communicate with SS7 systems, yeah, there we go. Vulnerabilities can hit us even through diameter, so it pretty much requires diameter work. And even though it has been existing for several generations, but still, in terms of adaptation, we have roughly 1.5 billion users today. But also, along with maturity, the number of threats will increase when people get to learn the technology and how to exploit it. So we end up in exploiting patching. So, but I still think that diameter is so much better than SS7 as it has been so far. So why now? Why is things happening? Yeah, Tedlu that we were supposed to. We'll get into that in the next slide. But surveillance, intercepting Angela Merkel's communications like that allegedly the NSA did, was most likely using SS7. Same thing with allegedly the Russian FSB when they intercepted the Ukrainians. But also, the irony of it all, when two co-workers at hacking team were eavesdropped using SS7. So basically, you end up at the point when you get what you deserve. So Ted Lieu, the congressman from California, is advocating that SS7 should be fixed, and that we have known, the Americans, have known about it so long, but they haven't done anything. So there's always this trade-off the greater good, securing our own infrastructure, or actually getting the upper hand in collecting intelligence and disclosing not disclosing vulnerabilities. So this actually made him think first creepy, and secondly, and most, it made him angry. And I fully understand why, since he said that there's a number of lead agencies that need to address this, as well as NCC, the National Communications Committee. So things are going on, and other nations have also discovered that, okay, we actually need to start fixing things, like things have become public information to a large extent. So by 2014, a company called P1Sec produced a map of the global risk when they actually measured 3 various areas. And yeah, sad to say, but Sweden is the crappiest country in the Nordics, or used to be at least. So from a Swedish point of view, we ended up in a not so flattering position. By then, it was like 2 years ago. And but things, when various organizations become aware that they actually need to do something, they started to do various things. But then again, was it the right things to do? Could things have been done differently? So how to get SS7 access? By a network operator, of course. Could be an insider, for instance. Or you could start off your own, being your own telco. Access service is offered for roughly $14,000 per month. Service access, commercial, meaning that some elements are offering their tracking services for payment, but also, like for instance, via exposed OAM interfaces. Looking in shorthand, for instance, is quite fun. There's lots of fun stuff to see. It used to be more, but things have gone in the right direction, but still there are things that are loose. And there's some other ways as well. So stuff you actually need to be able to do this is like Linux OS, SS7 SDK, but also most of all the access to SS7. And various stuff can be downloaded, in this case from OpenSS7.org. So, as said before, starting a telco in Sweden. Funny thing was actually I phoned to the lawyer at the security department at the Post Inspection Authority, the PDS, and said that, okay, should I be mentioning something, some of this? And was pretty much expecting an answer like, oh, well, you should not. But the response actually I got was, excellent, that more people can actually know how easy it is. So just creating awareness, but also influencing like decision making in some other extents. So 575 are registered at PTS, and since 2014 there have been 102 new. So anyone can start a telco. No formal approval to operate is needed. As long as you say to PTS, okay, I'm actually going to start a telco. Oh, fine. As long as you pay the minimum fee of 1,000 kronas, which equals 100 euros. If you have a turnover that's less than 5 million, otherwise it's 0.16%. So, being registered and all, we have like 2 options. One is to get their own infrastructure, which can be quite costly, or you can lease infrastructure like many other operators. And do you remember what I said about the global titles, like being equivalent to the IPs? there are IR21 documents lying around on the internet that pretty much describes what kind of node type it is. If it's like a host location register or a visitor location register, you have the addresses, you have what software versions is perfect for targeting. But also, the legal stuff, of course, I need to mention, is that we have laws in Sweden, you know. That pretty much says that a conversation between two parties is one thing, and you're not actually allowed to listen in on that exchange. The same thing goes for the US, where you have like the US code that states that interception and disclosure of via oral or electronic communication is prohibited. So, having said that, if you engage in these kind of activities, which of course shouldn't, more for learning purposes. So, attack categories: obtaining subscriber information is one of them. Eavesdropping, fraud, financial theft. We have like denial of service, and we have spam, lovely spam as well. This is a rough categorization of what kind of attack types there are, but then again, all types of attacks can be custom into accomplishing other things as well. So, but just to give you an idea from the overall perspective. So, obtaining subscriber IMSI. Do you remember what an IMSI was? Yeah, just checking. So basically, with an IMSI, we can uniquely identify or use subscribers with the mobile network. In this case, the IMSI can be acquired by using the TMSI, which is the temporary number that's being sent, since the IMSI isn't communicated as it could be intercepted. But then again, if we don't know the IMSI, we can just ask SS7 network for the IMSI using the TMSI. So this gives attacker some information: home country, the MNO, the mobile network operator, phone number, etc. So having the IMSI also enables the attacker to do lots of more fun stuff, matching, like determining subscriber's location. Anytime interrogation is a method of actually returning location parameters, but this has been closed by pretty much everyone. Also have the attacker posing as a fake home location register and using the normal map messages and procedures known as provide subscriber information. And it yields cell ID, mobile country code, network code, location area code. So we can get a quite good idea of where our target will be, or is, since it all relates to the target subscriber current location. And eavesdropping on subscriber calls, incoming and outgoing. Yeah, we can record conversations, but also intercepting, modifying incoming messages, which, yeah, if you use your creativity and imagination, what can be done with. Each of these attacks then could be performed without subscriber knowledge, so the user or subscriber won't be aware of anything, unless you use specific types of phones that could both see fake base stations and other things. That's a crypto phone. So this requires the mobile number of the target subscriber, but also some knowledge about the home network. And additional information required can be accessed from SS7 all along. So it's a malicious form of Google, actually, almost. Yeah, the attack can be based anywhere. It doesn't have to be part of the target network. intercepting and monitoring an outgoing call. This is pretty much a multi-stage attack where the attacker poses different mobile network elements. So they use CAML, strange acronyms, but the protocol logic to allow network operators to define services above the GSM and UTM standard services. And that's something that's being exploited, like where the intruder has the outgoing call routed to the a breaching monitoring solution. And then it's like they initiate two calls and they place themselves in middle as man in the middle. In terms of actually 2G versus 3G is, even though encryption in 3G is better than 2G, but 2G is jumpier than 3G, so 3G is easier to record. So that's also an interesting aspect in terms of recording traffic. Incoming calls, similar to the first, to the recent scenario, we have like the SS7 messaging procedure for call forwarding that's being exploited. Intruder calls forward at the via SS7 map, the map application part. The message level, the target subscriber calls to the breaching recording system, and then from there the intruder then cancels forwarding and places a second call to the original call ED party. Oh, sorry. Obviously, this one is wrong. So I basically feel like an elephant trying to push the keys. Yep, outgoing, incoming. Here we are. Subscribers SMS text messages. Basically fake mobile and a busy location register, and send a map update location request to the subscriber's home location register. And consequently, SMS messages will be sent to the intruder, acting as a fake mobile switching center, serving the target subscriber. So it's basically, some attacks are easier than others, since other attacks are multi-staged. So this attack can be used to obtain target subscriber passwords, reset passwords, and ultimately, once the passwords are reset, the intruder has a carte blanche to basically do anything to target subscriber accounts. So this is for fraud and financial theft. There are lots of other types of attacks that can be undertaken as well. You remember when I talked about the USSD, where you have like these combinations that you can like feed into your phone to redirect your calls, like if you're unavailable. This can be used for manipulation purposes as well. And this is also something that's a little bit trickier to actually prevent, since they are legitimate messages, and blocking all these will render some functions void. So in this case, the intruder first processes the SMS to obtain the global title address, so the IP, from the home location register, and the IMSI of the target subscriber and the current serving mobile center. And then the intruder poses as an mobile switch center acting on behalf of target subscriber and requests the subscriber current account balance. I do wonder where we can go from there. So after getting information, we can also start requesting transfer of funds. So normally an SMS message is, you get some kind of confirmation over SMS, like, okay, I have transferred a certain amount of money. But then again, using the other attacks like getting SMSs, yeah, we can also prevent the SMS from ever reaching the subscriber too. Disruption of subscriber availability. Is not equivalent to a DOS, but still we can prevent communication to a certain subscriber where their visual location register, we can send map at that location as we did before directly, but also from there that location producer complete subscriber will not be able to receive incoming messages until they move to another VLR or reboot their phone. Yeah, it's normal mobility management, but then again, everything can be exploited. So in this case, the intruders spoofs the network into believing that they are the new mobile switching center. And there are several more. So it's just to give you an idea of what's possible in terms of various types of attacks. And IMSI catches are quite interesting as well, since they also, at least in terms of 3G, has started to use SS7. Usually, if you send, well, base station doesn't have like an SSL type of authentication. But then again, if you do initiate a request and you send it, the device waits the base station to actually identify itself, and then you have like this connection. By actually using SS7, we can just pass that request over the SS7 network and get the authentication back. So therefore, SS7 enables 3G IMSI caches. So in terms of who are using these things, anyone not familiar with Five Eyes? Yeah, it's basically the countries of the US, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and the UK that share intelligence, and they work quite jointly together, along with the Snowden revelations. As been pointed out, like actors like GCHQ and others are collecting massive amounts of information. So those, of course, have developed capability, but also other countries are following. We have commercial actors like Variant, but also a Bulgarian one. This is a homepage. It has a home button, and it has just a phone number, but to reach them. They are also selling this kind of capability. So trying to fix what's broken. The NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the US, have deprecated the use of SMS for authentication purposes for various reasons. So the majority of telcos have looked to existing vendors to mitigate threats, and usually existing vendors have not seriously considered non-fraud related vulnerabilities. That's one of the lessons learned over this period from 2014 until now. So also recently tested networks, or retested networks, still feature the same vulnerabilities in various places, even though some things have been fixed, but far from gone. And having these SS7 firewalls blocking messages is not cutting it, to be honest. So also it requires constant monitoring of message types that's needed to identify attacks, and also analyzing and map all entities communicate to a given provider to ensure that they are all authorized. And there are some messages that actually move inside, and if somebody from outside are trying to send these SS7 messages for various nefarious purposes, they should be blocked since it shouldn't be coming from the outside. And the ATI, the anytime interrogation queries, just gone. Same thing with SMS home routing. Before directly sending SMSs to subscribers, they should be firstly relayed so they can be controlled, like for spam purposes, phishing and other things, before they are finally sent on to the subscriber. We'll also review existing equipment software or vulnerabilities. To a large part, old stuff is still rolling serious things out there. And link set filtering for these single transferring points with global titles. Patterns, non-billing, fraudulent activities occurring. That's happening to a large extent, but it isn't that good. Same thing with traffic analysis to review brute force and also getting traffic anomalies. Same thing as in the average world with IP communications. And in terms of incident response, some attacks are very difficult to actually discover when they're happening, but from a bigger context, if you get lots of metadata, you will see these clusters, and so obviously that's where you will direct your attention, and that's when you start digging. Meaning, you don't know what you're looking for, but when you find it, you know it so clearly. To be frank, or George, whichever, we need better solutions, and we need now, and we need a more overall strategy to actually mitigate SS7. Moving towards diameter, of course, is a very good way to go, but that way is very long. So location tracking, yeah, can be tracked when you are running your cell phone. So turn off the phone from its connection to the mobile phone network. Of course, then again, you can't use your phone, but if you are in a location that could be sensitive, could be worth doing. Same thing with relying on Wi-Fi instead. Not entirely sure that either. So it's weighing pros and cons. But also get an unlisted phone number that's yours, but also redirect your primary number. So basically you have an unlisted number that you use, but you have a public number that's being relayed to the unlisted one. In that case, if somebody tries to track you, yeah, they will track the public number. But if you make outgoing calls, of course, yeah, you're in another spot. So handing out your phone number, I should be a little bit careful. Things one I haven't really thought about before. Calling, so using a service that actually carries voice over data rather than actually sending a voice call. Skype, for instance, but then again, you never know who has the national security letter that works with the various agencies. But also, if you do messaging, don't use SMS. They are the more efficient, the more secure ways. So finally, use an old Nokia phone without battery and SIM card. Thanks for listening. And I also want to direct some kudos to both Cast and all, the CSFI, also ESD and P1SEC for input and ideas, thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Janne. So, questions from the others?
Hello, thanks for a great presentation. You were talking a lot about voice calls and SMS, but what about mobile data? Is that easy to eavesdrop as well if you have the SS7 breaches?
Yeah, a little bit more tricky, but that can also be intercepted, yes.
Question: when you are listening on SMS or voice, you redirect traffic. Would there be any way you could see on your bill that you have some roaming fees, or there'll be some report that can detect that it might have happened?
Yeah. But then again, when it's happening, you won't know. Afterwards, the same thing, like if your credit card has been exposed, in those rare cases that the bank doesn't discover it and issue a new card and block your previous one, you will end up seeing it, okay, somebody has bought this on my card. So it would be an equivalent situation, I guess. So reading a phone spec is a good idea.
I wanted to ask about SMS, well, interception and so on. You recommend using encrypted messaging apps.
Yep.
How about using SMS but with escalate format preserving encryption, so it looks like an SMS message and it uses the same character set, but it uses strong cryptography to encrypt the content of the SMS?
That should be feasible as well, even if you are able to intercept things. If I interpret you correctly, you still need to crack the encryption.
Any more questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Janne.
Thank you.